the Shields family with us. We're excited to have them with us, and they really basically added huge numbers to our attendance tonight. If you haven't noticed, they have a large amount of children, large family. Great to see that. And I was talking to the oldest, Caleb, here. He said he's 19, and I think the youngest is 3 tomorrow. So we've got a little span there. And he'll talk more about that, I'm sure, about his family, but that's very amazing to see that large family traveling together and the unity they have. It's what a blessing.
Okay, good evening. It is a blessing to be able to be here. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. I think this is our third, if not our fourth time here, since about 2009, 2010, something like that. When we were here first time, Pastor Moran was still here. And I don't know, some of you might remember, we actually were introduced to the church through a youth group that went down to Mexico with us with Pastor Davidson. And so we're going to actually be with Pastor Jim Davidson on Sunday night down at Maranatha Baptist Church, and I just spoke to him today coming up this way. He called me, we were on the road, and he said to give you all his greetings. And so we're going to be with him, and we're enjoying getting to see many of our churches. Now, some of you don't know us, and it's always good when you come to church and you see new faces. And on a Wednesday night, we appreciate you being here, allowing us to be here. You know, we've been on the road for about 2.5, almost 3 months now since we left Aruba. We have not been able to travel for 6 years. Last time we were here was 2016 on a Wednesday night also, if I'm not mistaken. And we're thankful to be able to get in. Honestly, this trip kind of came together in November. And so in a month and a half, we put together 78 churches on a list. And it was amazing that we were able to get 78 churches together for this trip, and that the pastors were so gracious to be able to schedule us. And we want to, I know Pastor Spicer's not here, but we've been praying for him. As a person with Crohn's, I definitely understand that journey, and we've been following through, praying for him often. And we know that it's kind of been rough lately, and we appreciate y'all's patience with it. I know how that goes. As far as the ministry, you know, tonight, Brother Jeremy told me y'all like questions, and so I'm gonna hold you to that by the time we're done, because one of the main things that I want to do tonight is I want to clear any questions that there might be in your head at all about what we do and how we work. And you know, I love to preach. I am a preacher at heart. I preach about 15 times a week when we're on the field, and that is pretty much the bulk of what I do and the most of what I do. But my objective in here and being here tonight is not so much to challenge you with missions. I know you love missions, you're involved in missions. If that were not the case, then we wouldn't be here. The reason that we're here tonight is to be able to present the ministry and what God is doing in Aruba, and to kind of let you see where your finances and your prayers have ended up. And so as we get into this, you know, if there's any questions throughout the presentation, I do a PowerPoint, folks. We do things kind of old-fashioned way. You know, y'all know Ethan, my brother, my younger brother. I know he's been here quite a few times. I think he was here just recently. Ethan is a little bit more on the techie side of things, I think, because he's the youngest in the family. I don't know, but I'm still a little bit old-fashioned that way. You know, we don't use slides because Walmart quit printing them a while back. But, you know, we do PowerPoint. You know, honestly, PowerPoint gives me the flexibility. We have some churches that give us literally 5 minutes, and you got other churches that say, hey, take an hour or two, you know. And so it kind of gives me time to speed up or slow down. Although I got to say it's a lot easier to slow it down than it is to speed it up. But we will use every ounce of time that we have to be able to present to you what the Lord is calling us to do. My wife Naomi's here with me, and Caleb's here with me. The other guys, they said, can we please go to another class? They've heard the presentation a lot of times. And so I'm glad that they get to be in a class back there. But we have 8 children. We were supposed to be here with 2 more, not children, but nieces. They're traveling with us for the last month. They're daughters of a Mexican pastor, but they ended up visiting their aunt this week, and so they're not with us. But anyway, you'll see a picture here in a second. If we can go ahead and we'll go ahead and pull that up. And I'm just going to dive into this really quick on the presentation, and I think a lot of what I could say at the introduction will be self-explanatory once I dive into this. Now, try it out, Caleb. What I do want to say just to begin with, again, is thank you for your support. Thank you for your prayers. We right now have 41 supporting churches, 2 in Mexico and 39 here in the U.S. In the last month, we've picked up another 5 churches. This trip, we're going to be in 78 churches, so if you do 40 of those are supporting churches, all the rest of them are new churches. And you know, one thing we've never really done, we've never really called up pastors out of the blue and said, we're so-and-so, can we present our ministry? The Lord has opened up doors in so many different churches in very unique ways. And every one of those churches, I could tell you a story about and how the Lord has opened up all those contacts. Here, you know, we met y'all guys through a contact that we really didn't pursue, in the sense that we didn't knock a door down trying to get into Faith Baptist Church. I mean, the Lord provided that contact, and that goes back into our family history. If y'all remember from Ethan also, you know, we're 3rd-generation missionaries, and so it goes back to my grandfather, which in 1966 went to Mexico, and when he went down to the field, he left on $23. He just left with $23. My great-grandmother gave him $10 a month, and a little missionary Baptist church gave him $13 a month, and they just left. They loaded up the station wagon, they went. And from then to now, the Lord has proven to us time and again in our family and our ministries that the Lord, if He wants you to have the finances, He'll give you the finances, because it's not about the money. The money will come in. If the heart's in the right place, the wallet's going to be in the right place, and the Lord's going to provide His work in His way. You know, we just asked, somebody asked us a question a few weeks ago actually, and they said, Matt, what percentage of support are you at? And I said, well, the way we answer that is in the following. We are at 100% of what God wants us to have, and we use 100% of what comes in. If the Lord wants us to have more, then He's going to have to send it. But we've never said if we get so much more, then we'll move. If we don't get it, then we're not going to go. We've never really handled our ministry in that sense. We've always said we're going to move, we're going to go. If we have to work a job on the side, we'll do it. If we have to cut the budget, then we'll cut it. If we have to tighten the belt, then we'll tighten the belt. But we'll do our best to be able to just simply be faithful. So anyway, thank you for your support, because as I was saying, we've been on the field now, this year will be 19 years, mostly in Mexico, and now the last 6 years in Aruba. And we have not lost a single church, even throughout COVID. And, you know, the more we travel, the more missionaries we meet. It is amazing how many of talking about, you know, churches dropping, churches closing, churches cutting finances when it comes to missions. And we have not had a single church do that. And so we really appreciate the consistency, the faithfulness that y'all have shown, and being a supporting church and being consistent in that way. So let's go ahead and dive into this, folks. And I'm very low-key, and when it comes to questions and so forth, again, if you think of something that you want to ask, don't risk forgetting it. You know, just raise your hand, and we'll just roll through this as quick as we can. We've got about 60 pictures I want to show you, and we'll just talk about it as best we can, kind of show you what's going on in Aruba, tell you a little bit about the island itself, a little bit about the country. Has anybody here visited Aruba? Okay, so some of you can actually prove what I'm going to say, you know, and let everybody know it's true. Because most people think of Aruba, and what do you think about? Beaches, okay, but what kind of beaches? You know, most people think of Aruba and they think of a Hawaii, they think of a Jamaica, they think of something tropical, and that's not Aruba, right? Definitely not. And so let's go ahead and dive into it. Of course, the family's up there. I didn't go through them. I can do this real quick. As far as the kids, for some of you who don't know them, you got Caleb's 19. Tirsa is up there. She's the shorter of the 2 older girls. She's 17. Sela is 15. Enoch is 13. Judah is 11. Mercy is 9, Joseph is 6, and Belle, our youngest, will be 3 tomorrow. And so that's the 8 children the Lord has given us so far. Praise the Lord for it. Our sending church is First Baptist Church of Wayland, Missouri, with Pastor Dan Diedrich. And our sending church is more than just a name. And I say this and not picking on any other missionaries or any other way of working, but we don't have a mission board. And the reason we don't have a mission board is simply two reasons. One is the closest fashion to do missions that I can find in the Bible is through your local church. And so we try to keep it that way through your local church. Secondly, it's just an extra step that we don't need since we have a church that is willing to follow with this aspect of being a sending church. And so they handle our taxes, they handle our income, they handle depositing in our bank account every month, they help us with our budget. And really any authority issue that we have goes directly through our sending church. And I know all missionaries have sending churches, but in so many cases it is just a name on a card, and the authority bounces back to another authority, another entity, another group. In this case, we try to keep our church in the loop as to 100% of what we're doing. Now, our ministry does bounce back all the way down to Mexico back in 1966 with my grandfather, Charles Lewis. I won't get into the history there. You've probably heard a couple times through my brother and myself. But anyway, we praise the Lord for a godly heritage, and we praise the Lord for a ministry that my dad's been in now for 44 years. My mom, obviously, since she was 9 years old. When Naomi and I got married, and the way I came to the States was in 1999, came to Master Baptist College down in North Carolina. Met my wife. She's a pastor's daughter from Missouri. She'd been there since 97. We got married in 2002, graduated in 2003. Moved down to the mountain area of San Antonio, Las Alazanas, Coahuila, Mexico. It's an area Ethan and I were raised in since we were children, since we were born. And we worked there from 2003 to 2006 and pastored a Baptist church that my dad had started in the area. From there, the Lord led us further south into the country of Zacatecas, into the state of Zacatecas, and there the Lord allowed us to start 3 different churches. We started Victory Baptist Church is our first church, and it became our mother church for the rest of the church plants in the area. And when we left in 2015, we left it with Brother Alan Gonzalez, which is still the pastor there, ordained him in 2011, and he stayed on. We just preached at their church 3 weeks ago, and so they're really doing good. COVID's hit a lot of the churches, of course, as it is everywhere, but they're still there. The second church plant we started is in a town of 12,000 people called Luis Moya, named it God is Love Baptist Church, and there we ended up leaving it with Brother Ryan Goodall. He's a guy from Missouri, went down, met one of the young ladies that was working with us. They got married, and he took over the church in 2013. They're still there. Again, we preached there about 3 weeks ago. They're really doing well. And the third church we started was Berea Baptist Church in a town of 40,000 people called Ojo Caliente, Zacatecas. And we were there for about a year and a half. It was a shorter period of time, but the Lord allowed us to meet a man who had been a pastor previously, had gotten discouraged, left the ministry, came to church, became a member with us. And when we were kind of overloaded, had 4 ministries at that point on our plate, we ended up having a new mission, and a pastor who'd kind of gotten discouraged, kind of saw them come together, and we let them go after about a year and a half of having been there in October of 2011. From there, the Lord led us on to Aruba. And again, there's so much we could say about Mexico. Mexico still has much need. 10th largest country right now in the world. And of course, I can take you right now to villages, areas, mountain ranges, where you can literally stand on a mountainside and see whole ranges where there is no Baptist missionaries that we know of in any way. And you can count 50, 60, 70 villages. And when I say villages, it can be anywhere from 200 people to 5,000 or 6,000, 7,000 people. The need is still there. But the gospel has been in Mexico for over 200 years, and there are many institutes, many churches, many colleges. Mexico, praise the Lord, is one of the countries, like the Philippines, that is stepping up and actually starting to send missionaries out to the rest of the world. And so in 2009, we had a Bible Institute class, and we started studying Bible geography, and I gave the people a map, and I said, can y'all place Israel on the map? Well, most of them couldn't place Israel, and I said, okay, well, back up a second. It's a world map. Can you place Mexico on the map? I mean, their country. They couldn't even place Mexico, and I said, well, hold on. Before we look at Bible geography, let's look at world geography. And so we looked at world geography, then we looked at Bible geography, and then I said, before we finish the course, let's go back through world geography, but let's look at it through the eyes of a missionary. And through that study, we came across some material from evangelist Gil Enger from Australia, and a couple others that had put together studies as to over 70 countries. Back then it was 79 countries that did not have a Baptist missionary that we knew of. Some of those places are illegal, where you can't say that you're a missionary, and so they don't know if anybody's there. But many of those countries are places like in the Caribbean where there used to be missionaries. For example, back after World War II, there was a huge wave of missionaries that went to the field, but sadly many of them died off, and many of their ministries have just died off. So the need is there in many countries where, as of today, that we can still find, there's still over 70 countries that on that list that, as we know of today, do not have a Baptist missionary. Well, I started preaching this, teaching it every chance I got, every missions conference, every opportunity. And honestly, it got to the point where I felt the Lord say, put up or shut up. I felt the Lord say, you preached it, you taught it. The ministry here is ready to let go. It's time to go. Nobody else was really wanting to go. We did see our younger brother-in-law surrender to the Solomon Islands, Michael Diedrich, and we appreciate the way the Lord touched his heart. But, we just weren't seeing, especially from Mexico, anybody say, it's time to go. And so we announced that we were going to consider. The Lord opened our hearts in a very clear way to Aruba. Now, you might say, why Aruba? And there's a lot I could get into here, but Aruba is a very unique place. It's part of the ABC Islands. It's down right close to South America. Many people think it's part of South America. Technically, we're part of the Caribbean. Aruba is part of the ABC Islands. Aruba, Berea, and Curaçao were part of the Dutch Kingdom. Holland has 4 islands. There's 5 countries under its banner, which would be St. Martin, which is half French and half Dutch. And then you got Aruba, Berea, and Curaçao. Aruba being the middle of the 2 islands on the size and population. Berea being the smallest, I think it's got 40,000 people. Curaçao, I think, has got 280,000 people. But anyway, Aruba is a small island, 6 miles wide by 19 miles long. And so I don't know how you are with your miles and your measurements, but that's not very big. 19 by 6 miles. We're divided up into 8 districts. As far as where we live right where the star is right there up towards the northern side. It's more towards where the motels and more the businesses are. We work mostly with Latins, and many of the Latins live on this side of the island because they work the motels and the restaurants. Now, if you keep in mind, because we're going to come to it in a little bit, San Nicolas, the arrow's not coming up here, but if you notice on the bottom side, San Nicolas, that is going to be a city I'm going to mention at the end of my presentation because there's a new church plant we're wanting to start there, and so it's on the opposite end of the island. I know it's only 19 miles, and I know some of y'all probably drive that just to go to school or to McDonald's or I don't know, but there is very little public transport. There is very little, especially when it comes to a lot of the working people. If you don't have a car, it's kind of hard to move, but especially on weekends, what little there is in the way of buses and taxis. Taxis are very expensive to begin with, but secondly, there's no public transport, especially on the weekends, for moving to places like a church. And so we do a lot of bus routes, and we have people on the south side that are interested. Now, as far as population, Aruba's got 120,000 people. If you Google it, officially, you got to add to that about 15 to 20,000 illegals, most of them from South America. Some from Africa and Arabia and other places, China, for example, but it's about 135,000, 140,000 people. Pretty densely populated. Unless you go to the corner, we have a national reserve, which is basically just a big piece of desert. If you start seeing from the pictures, Aruba is really just like a big piece of Arizona in the middle of the ocean. It's just a big, dry piece of island, We speak 4 languages on the island. There's over 110 nationalities present. There is 40 languages spoken on the island, but the local Aruban speaks 4 languages. They speak Dutch from the school. They're taught Dutch from the kindergarten on up, and all the government contracts are in Dutch. They speak English because of the tourism, Spanish because of the immigration. It's become one of the largest groups present on the island, the Latins. And then they speak Papiamento. And Papiamento is a dialect that's been announced or been, I guess, formed into a language now, if you can say it's been formed. And what is Papiamento? Papiamento, I like saying it this way, it's like Tex-Mex on steroids. Because it's got Spanish, English, Dutch, French, and Portuguese. And so it's got 5 languages. And then, for example, all the grocery stores are owned by the Chinese. So all of them speak Cantonese or Mandarin. So they add Cantonese into it. Then all the Arabians own the furniture stores and the hardware stores. And so they add Arabian. So it really just depends. It's kind of a catch-all. But it is a dialect that, changes from person to person. Depends on what their main language is. But it is definitely the language of the people. Aruba is surrounded by a beautiful ocean, but we only get about 18 to 20 inches of rain a year. Not much when it comes down to it. Very dry, but that's what makes Aruba famous. We don't get rain, we don't get hurricanes. Never had a hurricane attack or hit Aruba in its history. And so it was basically established in 1499 by the Spaniards and taken over in 1636 by the Dutch. And in all of its history, we've had some rainstorms here and there, but never a hurricane. For example, St. Martin got hit 2 years ago by a hurricane. They're still rebuilding. And so just to give you an idea, in December, we had 432 cruise ships dock in Aruba just in the month of December. Each cruise ship can have anywhere from 2,000 people to 8,000 people on it. And so can you imagine just the amount? It's close to 3 million tourists a year coming to Aruba on top of the variety of people we already have living on the island. But it is a very dry place. It's 82 degrees year-round, and you can pretty much count on consistent weather. I don't know if the 2 couples that went, if it was beautiful when you were there. Sometimes you get there and it's a rainy week, but it doesn't happen very often. first, and usually it's just sunny and beautiful. Water tastes good, one of the best waters I've ever tasted out of the faucet. You can drink out of the faucet. It's different from me coming from Mexico, but it's expensive. We pay about $350 a month pretty much in water. We pay about $600 a month in electricity. So next time you complain about your $200 electric bill, think about us. And that's for us, and then another $600 for the church. It's just expensive. It all comes from a distillation plant. They purify the water there, take it from the ocean, take the salt and the minerals out, and then they use the plant to be able to produce some of the electricity too. But anyway, it is a dry place with very little, and I'll get into the plants here in a little bit. Our economy is based off the flooring, the Reuben flooring. We got brand new brand new flooring bills just came out about a year ago. These are the new ones. We have something unique. We have a square coin in Aruba. We do prayer reminders. I don't know if y'all guys remember this from last time I was here. We do prayer reminders. We got 3 things in the back. One is we carry square coins. Aruba is one of the only countries, I think the only one right now, that it still uses a square coin actively. And so most countries have taken them out because they get stuck in the machines, But anyway, we use them as prayer reminders. I don't know if we're doing anything illegal by gluing a magnet to them, but anyway, if you're interested in praying for us and a small prayer reminder will serve you, we have little bracelets that work really good for bookmarkers, and we have a couple little bottles of sea glass that we took out of the ocean too, and then we got the coins. So if you're interested in it, take one. You're welcome to have it as long as you promise to pray for us every time you see it. But anyway, the florin, basically it's about 1.75 florins per dollar. It's been consistent for years, and so as far as that goes, it's an economy that's pretty stable, and a lot of it is based off of the tourism beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now, as far as animals, and I put this in here, I know we don't got many kids in here, but I always get questions, what kind of animals do you have on the island? Well, what kind of animals can you have in Arizona? It doesn't get very deep. But we got a native rattler that grows. We do have boas. I don't know if you can distinguish the boa there. That one actually we killed. We found it at a house. Boas were let go, just the same idea as in Florida, and they have reproduced, and they're killing almost everything else off, but they're all over the place. Then we got our iguanas. They used to be eaten. Now they're slowly kind of coming back because there's laws protecting them. We do have wild goats all over the place. I don't know if y'all guys got to see wild goats when you were there, but there is a part of the island that they're kind of roaming. Wild donkeys, too. I don't have a picture of them. Of course, you got all kinds of different colors of lizards and scorpions and so forth. We have a native owl that is a burrowing owl that's supposed to be unique to the island of Aruba. Right now, they're reproducing them all over the place. And then we have our scorpions and our centipedes. Our centipedes, a Caribbean centipede, can grow up to 14 inches long, about 2 inches wide. We've killed about 17 of them in our house. And so those things are about everywhere. So I don't know, I'm not trying to discourage you from visiting, but it is a desert island, We don't have monkeys, we don't have parrots, we don't have any of that stuff. We do have a couple birds that are native to the island, but, we have but on the other side, there's no humidity, and so we don't deal with mosquitoes. And so there's a benefit to that also. The divi trees, the cactus, the saguaro, it's got some unique aspects. Most of the island's covered with what I would consider like a volcanic rock. I believe Aruba is just one big piece of evidence for the flood. Because you look at the whole, and it's never had a volcano, and when you look at its history, and where it comes from, but just all the rock is like volcanic, and it's got shells encrusted in all the rock all over the place. And so very rough when you talk to the beaches. We do have some beautiful beaches, although most of them are man-made. They pump sand out of the ocean, put it up on the rocks, and they create another beach. They just did a new one a few months ago. And so it's more man-made, and of course the storm comes through and takes the sand back out, and you got rock again. But we do have some beautiful water. Some of that's one of the 10 hottest or most popular places for snorkeling and scuba diving in the world, and so we do have some beautiful water. Now, as far as the economy, just a little bit, you recognize what this is. It's a container off the back of a trailer. This is the basic rent. This is where you start. It's about $450 to $500 per month. Basically, it's a container with some doors or a door and some windows in it with a hole for the septic. And so that's where you start. From there, you kind of going up. And just to give you an idea, and I added this in because I've had a lot of questions recently about value of land. This house is a mediocre type house. Just to give you some specs on it, it's got a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and we're talking $412,000 value. And so I don't know what that is comparable to Morgantown for you, but that is middle of the line house. And so you want anything nice, rent for us, we've paid 2 different houses at this point, but we pay about $1,500 a month in rent pretty much. And so, and that's for a house that's definitely not the top of the line. And so kind of making ends meet. All the grocery, like I said, is controlled by the Chinese, and what's interesting about that is that the products, nothing grows on the island except aloe vera, but everything comes from out of town, everything comes imported on a ship, and so you get an apple, it might be beautiful, but it doesn't taste like anything but lettuce, because it's all matured in a container, and so it all comes, who knows how long ago it was cut and so forth, but everything's expensive, everything is shipped in. Religion, 81% Catholic, there's over 250 charismatic churches and about 100 Catholic chapels. We got 352 registered churches on the island of 19 by 6 miles. We got a Southern Baptist church, and we're the Independent Baptist church. Other than that, there's nothing that we don't have fellowship with anybody. We started in June of 2015 with this group of people. The Lord allowed us to have a consistent group of people that were already saved, baptized, had been through multiple church splits, and were looking for a Baptist church. So when we came in, we started with them. The Lord allowed us to start under this roof. We had a guy from Spain that loaned us his patio, and from there, excuse me, the Lord led us to this building, rented it from a lawyer, ended up having about 120 people in the room, and then from there we went to what was our biggest room so far, right downtown. This is where we signed our Constitution, and we signed the Constitution and the church covenant back in 2018 with about 36 people. And so this is where we officially organized as a church. And then from here we went to where we are right now, which is basically a house with 3 bedrooms. And the reason we took this house is the following. In the back, it had a big patio with a concrete slab, about 2-inch slab, not much in quality. But the owner said, if y'all want to, y'all can build in the back anything you want. She said, as long as you don't mess with our concrete. And so I said, okay. We started, because the church was paying at that point $3,000 a month in rent. We were paying about $1,800, and we said, we can't keep up. The church was in red almost every single month, and we're never going to buy a piece of property at this rate. And so we needed to find a place where we could join our rents, and we could, find a place that would let us have the same building. And of course, finding a house big enough for 10 people and have a church was next to impossible. So anyway, here's what we did. We put together pallets, and I know it's kind of, some of you might laugh at us if you're builders, but we put together pallets, connected them with plywood, built our 2x4 walls, and put it all together with screws, and basically built behind the house a shack. It's a shack church. Once you look at it, you would never really realize it. We put linoleum on the inside. Outside, we covered it with concrete, like fiberglass boards. And so all we had to do was paint them. We didn't really have to do anything. We just screwed it together, and we didn't want to, you're supposed to plaster it, but we didn't plaster it because we want to leave the screw heads available, so that whenever we leave, the idea is we take everything apart, and we take it with us, and we use it to rebuild a new place. And so on the inside, the drywall probably will have to scratch, but other than that, everything, including the tent, I think we'll be able to use to reproduce or to rebuild. We have had about 120 people in the building, and in this building is where we have both our English and our Spanish group. This was our 6th anniversary this past June, and we do have Berea, Iglesia Bautista Berea, which is our Spanish church that we started in 2015, and in 2019 we started an English group. We started originally with the idea of kind of keeping them together, but Brother Jeremy, it wouldn't work out. The language, the timing barriers, I never thought about stuff like this, but you get the Dutch, you get the Americans, you get the Canadians, and they're very punctual, they're really big on their time, and if you know anything about us Latin cultured people, time doesn't really mean that much, and so it's a constant conflict in different ways. Well, eventually that kind of led to where we started an English mission within the Spanish, but it has really become, in fact, by the end of this year, we're talking about it becoming completely independent. And so the idea would be to have 2 sister churches. Right now, they're sharing the same building, they're sharing the same pastor, but they would be completely separate ministries. And so here in the picture is about 2/3 of our people. We had about 150 people we work with, about 40 in the English and about 110, 115 in the Spanish. And we have Sunday morning 8:30 English services and Thursday English services, and we have Sunday morning 10:30 Spanish service and Wednesday night services in Spanish. And then Sunday nights I'll get to here in a second because we're talking about a 3rd plant. I know as missionaries, people ask us all the time, what do you do? Well, it's all about planting churches. We are church planting missionaries. I know today, I don't know if you know this, but they're saying that 52% of all missionaries sent out by the U.S. today are doing parachurch ministries. And what that means is, it could be, starting Bible institutes, Bible camps, schools, orphanages, flying like in Ethan's case, so many other things, which they're all great. But the sad thing is that as Baptist missionaries, we've walked away a little bit from the idea of church planting. And so we are very stubborn on this point of specifically maintaining the church planting aspect. And so everything we do kind of tries to go back to that point. And obviously it's winning people for Christ. It's seeing people get baptized. It's seeing people become discipled. As you notice, we struggle because we don't have a baptistry. We have to go to the ocean to baptize. It makes for beautiful pictures. And then it's very unique in the sense that every time we baptize, usually you get tourists walking by and locals, taking pictures and videos and so forth. It really brings you back to the original idea of it being a public testimony. But from there, the Lord has allowed us to be able to see people discipled. And that's what it's all about, just to talk about the way, the Lord allows you to see people, and y'all see it here, and that's what it's all about. Seeing people come to Christ, it's seeing them discipled in the knowledge of the Scriptures, and seeing them grow, seeing families change, seeing young people surrender, seeing marriages come back together. Especially nowadays, the amount of people we're seeing in divorce, the amount of people we're seeing in family violence, the amount of people we're seeing coming out of drugs, even prostitution, pornography. I mean, it is amazing. I know y'all see that stuff up here too. But really, as missionaries, anything that we can do, that we can add to, or that we can use to be able to work with people, we do use. And we try to be careful, and we don't buy people off, if you know what I mean, because sometimes you can be guilty of doing activities to be able to get people in and, kind of hooking them, as you say. Well, we don't really go with that, but we do understand that one way or another, activities do help bring people in. And so we're consistent about trying to do different activities, whether that be everything from Mother's Day, Father's Day, Day of the Child, Day of the Grandfather, Labor Day, Picnic Day, anything we can do to be able to have an outreach. Some things have worked, and we continue doing them. Other things we've done, and we're like, that didn't work. We won't do it again next year. But the Lord has really allowed us to have a solid group of people to work with. Everything we do as a church, and we try to get people involved. Of course, as church planting missionaries, we try to, it's not just the idea of let's exist and let's maintain. If it was a matter of let's just kind of keep everything at an even keel and we'll just kind of keep on going, then there's many ways I could be satisfied. But that's not what I'm there for. I'm not there to keep things at an even keel. We're there to see things grow. We're there to see people become independent. We're there to see the church walk on its own 2 feet and to see them become completely indigenous when it comes to our time to leave. So whenever 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, the Lord allows us to leave Aruba, we want to see 1, 2, 3, 4 churches, however many the Lord allows, standing on their own 2 feet, reproducing themselves into more believers and into more ministries. Now, how many churches can Aruba have? I don't really know. The difficulty there is going to be not so much location, but more languages. For example, there's 15,000 Chinese on the island. Nobody's working with the Chinese. First place, they all work at the grocery store, so they go to work at 7. They quit working at 12. They work a crazy schedule. No, they don't close a single day of the year. When can you work with them? But the other thing is the language. And so they're not going to come to an English church. They're not going to come to a Spanish church. They need somebody to reach them in Chinese. There's about 11,000 Koreans. There's about 12,000 Arabians on the island. Nobody's working with them. There's a huge mosque, but nobody's working with them with the gospel. So is it going to be we need a multilingual church that'll reach out in different languages, or do we start missions with each of these languages? I don't know the answer yet. With the English and Spanish, it's become 2 separate ministries. We're hoping the Lord will direct us. Now, 2 things I want to close with, and these are kind of the focuses of our ministry right now, other than the church planning, is about 1.5 years ago we started a radio ministry. And kind of crazy how the Lord opened it up. I would have never thought about doing it before, but the Lord allowed us to open up a radio ministry Monday through Friday, 2 hours a day. So we got 10 hours a week that we're preaching on the radio. Not only are we being listened to locally, but right now we got people that we know of in 16 different countries, Latin countries, that are listening online. And then we got people that said, we can't listen live, can you record it? So we started recording it, and if any of y'all are familiar with WhatsApp, basically we started sending it out through WhatsApp as a recording, and we got people in 12 different places listening to those recordings and using them actually as service times, because they don't have a pastor, don't have a church, so they're coming together and listening to the recordings as preaching. And so it's really been neat to see how the Lord has opened. We got 3 families in the church directly connected with the radio, but the Lord has allowed us to be able to see the radio open up doors in other countries. And the big problem now is, how do you disciple people in a different country that you're seeing come to the Lord, or you're seeing wanting the church, but you can't? I mean, I got people right now in Venezuela and Colombia, for example, saying, look, we got land, we got people, we got a group that's interested. Is there any way you could send somebody? Can somebody come preach? Can somebody come help? And that's where you wish you could cut an arm off and send it. You wish you could cut off an ear and send it even. I mean, something, to be able to reproduce. You can't. And that comes us down to the point, one of the biggest things we need is help. Now, I mentioned earlier that I'm preaching about 15 times a week right now. We already got the 2 churches with as much as we can already do. But the Lord has opened up a door recently. The very first Baptist church in Aruba that was started is Bible Way Baptist Church. It was started by a missionary from Indiana by the name of Hosteller. He was there in the 80s. He started this church, built this building, and then he left it to a national. The national fell in sin. It split 4 different ways, and it's been empty for about 9 years now. The guy that fell in sin still has the keys and the title, and Brother Jeremy, he's told me for 6 years, if you'll come be the preacher, you can be the pastor. I'll just sit on the front bench and tell you what to do. And so I've told him I'm not going to work that way. That's not going to happen, and we've avoided it. But about November of this last year, he came to me and said, Matt, the building's falling apart. This was paid for by Baptists, started by Baptists. It's got to stay with Baptists. And I'm willing to sign it, give it away. Y'all can have it. So, Lord willing, and we're looking for groups. Hint, hint. We're looking for helpers. What we're wanting to do, and this is the inside. It's a beautiful building. It's covered in dust, and the fans are messed up. The air conditioners are messed up. The building itself's got a lot of cracks. But as you can tell, it's pretty much abandoned, and it's been empty for all this time. But it's got Sunday school rooms on this side. It's got space to build like a parsonage. It's actually got an added piece of property that's about 200 square foot. Not huge, but you could build a little parsonage on it, and it's about 2 houses up. But what we're talking about is when we get back in June is in the month of July starting a 3rd church plant, which would be Sunday nights. We used to have Sunday night services at our other church, but COVID killed that, and we haven't been able to get it back, so we've been reserving that space. And then Tuesday nights, we would have a church over here. And so whether it be English, Spanish, I don't know. We're just going to work with what comes through the door. But with the 3 church plants, and somebody asked me the other day, said, should you be doing a 3rd church plant? And my answer was, if I'm mature and if I counted the cost, probably the answer is no. I can't do what I've already got. But the door is open. The building is being given to us, which is a high value there in San Nicolas. We're going to walk through the door as best we can. But it all boils down to the fact we need help. Even, again, it's not even about money. There's going to be like $20,000 we got to invest in the building, stuff like that. But, folks, it's not even about money. We need help. If you'd ever consider coming to, you can be in Aruba, no visa. You walk through with your passport. You can be there up to 3 months. And so if you ever consider short-term mission trip, we'd love to have you. If any of you ever considered full-time service, I'm too old. My grandfather was 55 years old when he surrendered to the mission field. There's not many countries you can go and walk right in with your passport being accepted and they speak your language. I'm dead serious. If the Lord's ever worked in your heart and the Lord will continue to guide, we would love to have you. We need help. Now, having said all this, there is so many different things that we could get into. I got literally about 3 minutes left on the clock, and I know that my time flies from me, and it's part of that Mexican inward clock that I got, But this is really the passion of what I'm here for. This is what I want to do tonight. I want to give you an idea of what's been going on, what is going on. I want you to kind of get a little bit of a passion and a feel for what the Lord has placed us to do in Aruba. Each country is different, but folks, we're in a world that's changing every day more so, and we're in a world that the need is great. We just crossed over the 8 billion mark. I don't know if you know that. 8 billion people today. And to think that there are still, I read a statistic the other day that said 68% of the world does not have access to a Christian. I don't know if that's true or not and what kind of Christians are talking about when they look at a statistic like that, but regardless of what statistics or numbers you put to it, the truth is there's an amazing amount of people who still don't have the gospel. There's places like Aruba to where we can reach many of those places. There's places like Aruba, they have, it's a little New York if you've ever been to New York. It's amazing. You just literally stand on the sidewalk and you can see so many languages, so many colors, so many people. And to think, we've had people that have been in the church for years and now they're back in Venezuela, now they're in Suriname, now they're in Europe, now they're in Mexico, now they're in U.S. People that we've been able to reach that were there for 2 or 3 years and they're gone because there's a huge rollover because of the tourism, because of the immigration issue. We're where the Lord wants us to be. We know that. We appreciate y'all supporting us. We appreciate you standing behind us. But we beg of you to please continue to support, continue to pray. But again, when it comes down to missions, when you look at Matthew chapter 9, when you look at the issue of missions, it's not a lack of need. It's not a lack of power. It's not a lack of money. When Jesus was looking at the harvest, he said the harvest is great. The workers our laborers are few. Pray ye therefore. You know, the issue, it all comes down to two things that is what we need, and that's the meollo we say in Spanish. It's the central problem of missions. We don't pray enough, and we don't have enough volunteers. That's what it boils down to. Everything else is available, but our prayers and our laborers. You know, are we doing that? Are we praying enough? Are we truly praying enough? Sometimes as Christians, we are so foolish, we cry for some of the dumbest things. I've seen guys cry when their team loses. I've seen teenagers cry through Marvel when Tony Stark dies. I've seen ladies cry through a movie, through a love scene, or through a soap opera because their plant didn't bloom. I mean, sometimes we get emotional about some of the dumbest things. But when's the last time we genuinely were touched, broken about souls? When's the last time that we were genuinely touched and broken about what touches and breaks the heart of God? You know, when's the last time we fasted for a soul? We say we love, we say we're concerned, we say that we're broken, but honestly, do our actions show it? The average Baptist church, I know we're going into prayer time here in a few minutes, but you know, the average Baptist church prays 5 minutes per service. And that includes the opening prayer, the offertory prayer, the closing prayer, and put it all together. Unless you ask that one deacon to pray, that everybody knows, like, Pastor, why'd you ask him to pray? He's going to pray for everybody on the list. Everybody, when you chuckle, there's somebody here that prays like that, right? And so, but you know, we don't really pray much. And it's funny, the Lord said, my house shall be known as a house of prayer. And as important as all the other things are that we as Baptists are known for, sadly, we have walked away from the ministry of prayer. And when it comes to missions, I definitely believe we're not praying enough. And sometimes when we pray for, you know, Lord bless all the missionaries of all the world, you know, so generically. And when it comes down to work, to laborers. Okay, folks, I can give you about 1 minute, if Brother Jeremy will let me. Do you have any questions? Any questions at all? You know, my dad used to say, if you don't get any questions, one of two. Either you were very informative or you bored everybody to death. So I'm hoping I was informative. So anything at all in Aruba, anything at all. They're not requiring the vaccine, guys, and they're talking about taking away the mask mandates on the flights, so hopefully that'll happen. But we'd love to have you. For the 2 that went to Aruba, y'all plan on going back? Well, now you have a reason to come back. You know, we've had a lot of people. It's been interesting to see people that have come to Aruba, and they say, well, we're going on vacation. We might as well go where we have a missionary and go to church and help out, and that's been neat. It's been neat to see people come and kind of combine their vacation with a missions trip, and we would encourage you to do that. Send pastor, one of the pastors. And so I'm serious, guys. We so many times say that we're disconnected, but you know, we don't invest in it. You know, send somebody down. Yes, sir. Brother, I think the Chinese, it seems like wherever they're at, they control the basic, mundane, ordinary needs of the people. I look at New York, and for example, they control the washing, and they provided some of the basic services. And it's like they never shoot for the big, rich things. They always kind of shoot for the mundane. Everybody's going to buy groceries. Everybody's going to buy groceries, and they shoot for something they know everybody's going to get all the time. In every country I know the Chinese coming, that's one of the first things they hit for at grocery stores. And, you know, they don't hire anybody. There's one day in the year, actually there's 3 days, but there's one day specifically that you will get fined if you have anybody working. You're not supposed to pay any salaries. And it's interesting because you walk in the grocery stores, they're all open. Everybody else is closed by law. And the government walks in and they say, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be open. And they say, well, it's my mom, it's my dad, it's my cousin, it's my grandpa, it's my other cousin, and my other 3 cousins, and everybody's family, so nobody's hired. And so they come in and they just take over. And then they have a very unique system to where they have like elders, and the elders are actually buy property and set up money for another cousin to come and start another grocery store. There's like 350 grocery stores on that. And there's one that's Dutch. Other than that, everything is Chinese. And so they've figured a niche where the money is. Yes, sir. It's well, Aruba in itself, you know, since it's such a small island, you know, it's really not divided. But the top section is Oranjestad, and the second section has 3 cities, but the main city is San Nicolas. And so I'd say about 1/3 of the population is on the south side. Most of the south side, it's funny, it used to be the white-only beaches back in the day. It's where the refinery is, and so they used to have the higher-ups, the Dutch people and everything, the Americans would come and live there. Rogers Beach, Baby Beach, they were closed beaches. Only white people could go to. And then it became the area where a lot of the slaves lived back in the slave days. And so it's kind of interesting. It went from being the white-only beaches and kind of a closed area of the island to where now it is known as the prostitution center. It is known as, what little crime there is in Aruba, it's mostly in San Nicolas. Rents go down, prices on everything on that side of the island goes down. But a lot of it is because of the kind of people that are there. But in my opinion, it just shows more need. It shows more need. But you'll have more black people, for example, there, more colored people, a lot more Latins are moving into the area too. Not as many Chinese, but again, because they follow the groceries and the businesses, and not as many Europeans and so forth. There's a lot more English spoken there, and there's a lot more papiamento. And so, but what's interesting, most like Lutheran Orthodox type churches are down there too. It's some interesting aspects. But you got about a third of the island. So from where that church is, literally 3 blocks down the road is the prostitution center. And so we're going to be right downtown. When you walk into San Nicolas, the first big roundabout, because we don't have stoplights, right there, the first roundabout, the church is right there. It's an excellent place. Everybody can see it. Yes, ma'am. The barriers, I'd say the biggest barriers are people's schedule, people's time. Everybody works 2 or 3 jobs. You have to be able to make ends meet. And everybody, the tourism kills you because, for example, we have people that come Sunday morning, but they never come Sunday night or Wednesday night. People that come Sunday night that never come Sunday morning, Wednesday night. People come Wednesday and never come Sunday because they work. People that come one Sunday a month. People that come one Wednesday a month. People that come one Sunday every 3 months. Because of their schedules. They get off ever so often. And so that kills it when it comes to business meetings, Lord's Supper, you want to have an announcement. You want the whole church together. It doesn't happen. And so getting people's schedule to work out is rough. Now, as far as getting them to understand the gospel, I would say the same things that y'all get in the States. People are in love with money. They're in love with prosperity. They're in love with toys. If you're not working, you're playing. Especially a place like Aruba, the casinos. I have never been a place that drinks as much like Aruba. In Mexico, they drink a lot. In Mexico, you got Holy Monday. Nobody works on Monday. They say not even the chickens lay eggs on Monday. You drink Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday you're half drunk. You get to work on Tuesday. But Aruba beats it. It is amazing the amount of alcohol that is consumed. The party atmosphere is 24/7. And so that aspect. And then the other thing, probably one of the bigger things, is the rollover. People are constantly leaving. You ask the people of our church, especially in the Spanish church, the people that are Latin, do you plan on being here 20 years down the road? Why would I want to live in Aruba? Everything's expensive. It's not like the immigrants that come to the States say we want to stay here if we can stay here. So they want to come work 3-4 years, maybe 20-30 years most. I want to get home. And so that's great because it gives you a huge rollover people to work with, but it's rough in the sense that you work with people 3-4 years and they're gone. And so even as a church planner, I'm looking for the future pastors. I'm looking, especially now, 2-3 churches. They got to come up with 3 different men that are willing to lead. Well, finding people that are permanent, that stay, that know the languages, that know the Bible, that are willing to stay, and long term you can invest in them, it's not all that easy. Brother Jeremy? Well, brother, we had to close it. We had to close it on this trip because I had some guys that had the knowledge but not the time. And then we had others that had the time but not the knowledge. And so I wasn't able to just let it go to anybody. So we backed away from that. We closed it off for this time. Pray for us that when we get back, we'll have the same time slot. Because the guy said, no, I'm going to sell it off to whoever gets it. And we had a really good time. 11 to 1 was lunchtime. Everybody was listening. If we get 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't know what's going to happen. But we, as far as the income, it was about $600 a month, and the church was paying about $400 of that. I was paying the other $200. So. Yeah, well, we don't ask for donations. That's one thing we said because all the radio programs that are there, it's a Christian channel. It's even got a witch doctor on it, supposedly. Not supposedly, I know he's there. It's got a lot of Catholic channels, a lot of Pentecostal, and they say it's the Christian channel of Aruba. It's got everything on it. But we're the only Baptist, and everybody asks for money. And from the very beginning, we said, nope, this is going to be a local church ministry, local church paid. And when I took on the second hour, they gave us a second hour for $200, and that's why I started paying that. I said, I'll do it, but I'm going to pay for it out of my pocket because I knew the church couldn't do it. The church supports 9 missionaries right now. They pay their own rent. They've done a lot of their own builds now. They're about, for the first time in 6 years, they're putting money in the bank for property. And so it'll still be a way before we can buy, but that's the idea of staying at the place we're at for a while. The church building we got in the back, we put 2 Sunday school rooms and a kitchen. When we get back, we're talking about tearing down those walls so that we can actually have space for another 30, 40 people. Of course, that means we'll have to build Sunday school rooms, but we're trying to find a way to where we can make that space last as long as possible before we have to leave. So, okay. Well, folks, I appreciate it. Brother, I know I've taken time that I didn't have, but thank y'all guys for allowing us to be here. Don't forget, we'll be at the table, and we do have a sign-up sheet if y'all are interested in signing up for our emails. Thank you, Pastor.